Good afternoon, welcome everyone. Welcome to our virtual business personal property statement webinar and Q&A session, hosted by the Office of Los Angeles County Assessor Jeff Prang. I am Special Assistant Field Deputy Ian Michael May, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, please allow me to break down how today's webinar will work, along with some important Zoom functions. Today, we will begin with a presentation from Principal Appraiser Frank Pavone, who will provide an overview of the business personal property statement and its importance. Next, we will have our assessor team answer a handful of our most commonly asked questions. Finally, we will conclude this webinar by answering questions from you. Throughout the entirety of today's webinar, we invite you to submit your questions via Zoom's question and answer function. Our subject matter experts will be answering your questions throughout the webinar. For those attendees who are unfamiliar with Zoom, I would like to point out a few features that you should be aware of. On the bottom of your screen, you will see a green check mark surrounded by a green box. When you click on it, another screen will pop up where you will have an opportunity to type your question to our team. Once you submit, the question will be sent to our panelist team to be reviewed and answered. Once our team answers the question, it will reappear for everyone in our audience to see. You may submit a question anytime during the presentation. Any questions submitted by the audience not covered by our commonly asked questions section will be verbally answered during our live Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We thank you for joining us today. Let us now turn over to Frank Pavone for his presentation.
Thank you, Ian. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the business property statement, which is Form 571L. Later on in the slides, I'm going to show you where you can get more detailed information regarding the business property statement that's found on our website. But let's begin. Can we go to the first slide, please? Thank you, Lawrence. So all of you might be asking, what is personal property, right? Well, personal property is all property except real estate. Taxable tangible property, which in this case, what we're here for, the business property statement, is machinery and equipment, office furniture, computer, supplies, etc. Those items are considered taxable personal property. There are other types of personal property also that are not taxable, and they include household goods, personal effects, and business inventories. And when I say business inventories, I'm referring to if you have a retail business and let's say you sell clothing, the clothing that you have for sale are considered business inventories and they would not be taxable. We also have non-taxable intangible property, which are bank accounts, liquor licenses, insurance policies. Those type of intangible personal property we usually don't assess. Next slide, please. So what gives the assessor the legal basis to tax personal property? Actually, to tax all property. So California Constitution, Article 13, Section 1A says that all property is taxable. Further in that statement, unless exempt. Okay, so in general, properties that are owned and used by educational, charitable, religious, or government organizations may be exempt from certain property taxes. Just in general, if you have a business and you are operating as a nonprofit organization, you may be exempt from property taxes, but you would have to file a claim for exemptions with our exemptions department. It's not automatically given, but we can go into that information later. Next slide, please. So what are the assessor's basic responsibilities? So here's a few of them. Number one is to locate all taxable property in the county and also identify ownership. That's very important because when we find a business and we assess property, a tax bill is generated and it's supposed to be to the owner of that property. Another thing that the assessor does is we establish a taxable value for all property subject to property tax. And also every year we prepare an assessment roll showing the assessed values of all property in the county of Los Angeles, whether it's real property, whether it's personal property, boats, mobile homes, it would be in our assessment roll. And lastly, like I mentioned earlier, we apply all legal exemptions if you're a not-for-profit organization. Next slide, please. So how do we find your business? You might have received a business property statement through the mail, and you're wondering how we came about your information. So every year we have appraisers that canvass commercial properties in the county of LA. We go out typically from August until February, March. We go out checking businesses, we update our records, we note if a company closed down or if a new business opened. We get referrals and information from business property statements. Sometimes a taxpayer will return their property statement and tell us that they sold their business or they closed their business and so forth. So the actual property statement itself is one way that we get information. We also do property tax audits. The business property statement form itself is subject to audit. And that's one way we get information. We also have sales tax permits from the State Board of Equalization. We have business journals, news articles, business journals that where we find a new business opened or they're doing something, creative. So we'll look into that. Industry websites, city license records is another way, and the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control are some of the ways that we get your information. Next slide, please. So here's a couple of things regarding the business property statement. The law requires any person owning personal property and fixtures in the county that has an aggregate cost of 100,000 or more to file a business property statement with the assessor, regardless if the assessor makes such a request. So if you have over 100,000 in property, in taxable personal property, then you are required to file the form, even if the assessor doesn't request it. And then the other occasion where you might be asked to file a form is if the assessor requested. So if we find a business while we're doing a canvas and for some reason that business is closed, we'll take down the name of the business that's on the storefront, the phone number, and we'll send you a form. And so that's another way that we require you to file a form if you have over 100,000 or if the assessor requested. Now, failure to file the form can lead to a 10% late filing penalty or a non-filing penalty. So, it's very important that you return the form to us, whether we request it or not. Next slide, please. So property becomes taxable on the lien date, okay? That's very important. The lien date is very important because it determines if you're gonna be assessed or not. So the lien date every year is January 1st, okay? So let's say you open a restaurant in December of last year. Since you were there already on the 1st of January 2025, you would be possibly subject to property tax based on the opening of your business. Conversely, also, if you open your business, let's say on January 5th, after the lien date, you wouldn't be taxable for business personal property for this coming year because you opened after the lien date. And on the form, on the property statement form, you would declare all your costs and related property information as of this date. So any machinery equipment, office furniture, computers, or whatever it is kind of equipment you have for your business, you would report it as of the lien date. Thank you. Next slide, please. So here's some important dates regarding the filing of the business property statement form. On the form itself, the due date is April 1st, but the assessor will receive the form without penalty if filed by May 7th, by 5 p.m. on May 7th of each year, okay? If May 7th falls on a weekend or a holiday, the deadline is moved to the next business day. I believe this year, May 7th falls on a Wednesday. So if you file your form by 5 p.m. On Wednesday, May 7th, you should be fine and there will be no late filing penalty, which is a 10% filing. Again, the May 7th doesn't change. It's the same date every year. And as I just mentioned, if we receive the form after that date, there is a 10% penalty that's added to your assessed value. And business property tax bills are entered on the unsecured roll as of July 31st, 2025. And those tax bills are due August 31st of each year. This year, it's August 31st of 2025. If you pay the bill after that, there will be penalties and sometimes collection costs that are associated with paying your tax bill late. Next slide, please. So confidentiality, okay? The business property statement form itself is not open for public inspection. It's confidential. All the information that you put on there is limited to the assessor. But if the owner decides, they can have the form reviewed by their agent, their accountant, their lawyer, their representative, but they have to let us know that it is okay to share that information with their representative. And if that's the case, they would have to file a form to authorize another individual to view the form. Otherwise, it's just limited to the owner. And like I mentioned earlier, the statement is subject to audit. At the bottom of the form, there is a statement there that it said it's subject to audit. And just briefly, the assessor does property tax audits. And when we do a property tax audit, we cover a 4-year period. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, this is just a brief overview of what the form is and the important due dates and what kind of information should be included on there. But if you go to our website, the assessor's website, we have other types of information that's important to you. This presentation itself, it's more lengthy, has a lot of questions, it has a lot of details. It breaks down different sections of the form itself that you can go into. And then on here where it says webinars and presentations, if you can click on it on the slide. So you see there that we have other types of information on our website that's useful to you that you can view on your own when you have time. And including, like I said, the full version of this slideshow that I just presented is very more detailed. It's close to 60 slides, and it might be able to answer some of your questions that you have, the type of things you would report on the form itself. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go into basically answering some of the most common questions we get regarding the form itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for that comprehensive and informative breakdown. We will now answer common questions asked by many business owners in the Los Angeles County community. The first question is, am I required to file a business property statement? For this question, we have Principal Appraiser Alanush Sarkisian to help us answer.
Yes, as explained in the slideshow, you in 2 conditions you are required to file. If you own, control, or possess an aggregate cost of $100,000 for business personal property, you have to file. And the other condition is when the assessor is requesting you to file a business property statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alanush. Moving on to the next question. When is the lien date? This will be answered by Angel Rosales.
Okay, so your property becomes taxable on the lien date, which is 12:01 a.m. on January 1st.
Thank you, Angel. Question 3. Can we get an extension if the form is due on April 1st? This will be answered by Maria Jacobian.
While the form is due on April 1st, we will accept the filing without the 10% late filing penalty until May 7th. If May 7th falls on a weekend or holiday, the form will be due the next business day.
Thank you, Maria. Next question. What if I don't file the business property statement form? This will be answered by Arpine Gukasian.
The assessor is required by law to estimate the value of your business property and fixtures on the lien date. In addition, a 10% non-filing penalty will be added to the assessed value. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpine. Next question. Can I file my statement online? This will be answered by Calvin Chen.
You will need 2 things to file your return online, the assessment number and the PIN number. First-time filer usually will not have a PIN number assigned. However, you can call or email us. Our e-file team can assist you with getting a PIN number if your company requires for e-file. Our phone number is 213-974-2643, and our email address is efileassist@, assessor.lcounty.gov. It's EFILEASSIST@assessor.lcounty.gov. Thanks.
Thank you, Calvin. And make sure you guys write down that number in email too. It's very important. But next question is, what if I discovered an error in my filing after submission? This will be answered by Chelsea Tan.
You may submit an amended filing by May 31st. Also, we suggest adding a note at the top of a statement indicating that it is an amended copy. This will help us to distinguish it from the original version. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Next question. How do I report equipment disposals from the prior year? This will be answered again by Maria Hakobian.
Yeah. Disposal costs are adjusted in the year the purchase was made, not in the year the equipment was disposed. Meaning, if you dispose of computer equipment purchased in 2015 and disposed it in 2022, you would remove the cost of the computer from the 2015 year, not 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Now, what if I disagree with my assessed value and I want to compete against it? For this question, it will be answered by Joshua Ramirez.
Yes, you can contest your assessed value through the Los Angeles County Assessment Appeals Board starting July 2nd until November 30th of the corresponding tax year.
Thank you, Joshua. Next question. Do you prorate the tax bill if I was only in the business part of the year? This will be answered by Daisy Young.
Yes, your unsecured tax bill isn't adjusted based on how long you were at the location. However, if you moved in after the lien date, you will not be liable for the property taxes in that respective year.
Thank you, Winnie. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Daisy. This next question will be answered by Winnie Zhao, and it's a very important one. When is my tax bill due?
The tax bills are mailed out between March 1st and June 30th of every year, and they are due August 31st by 5 p.m. That means you have to mail it out postmarked by 5 p.m. However, for 2025, August 31st actually falls on a Sunday, so you will have until the next business day, which is September 1st, Monday, 5 p.m. to have your tax bills mailed out. I mean, your payment mailed out.
Yeah, thank you, Winnie. I really appreciate that. And now for this last and final question. This is relating to the business owners whose business personal property might have been damaged in the January wildfires. For these business owners, is there any relief available? This will be answered by Alanush Sarkeesian.
If your property sustained at least $10,000 worth of damage as the result of a fire or any other kind of disaster, you may qualify for misfortune and calamity reassessment. For more information about misfortune and calamity reassessments, please visit our website at assessor.lacounty.gov. You can also call us at 213-974-8658, or you can email us at relief@assessor.lacounty.gov. That email address again is relief@assessor.lacounty.gov. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alanush, and thank you so much to the assessors team for answering all of those common questions. And now, that concludes our frequently asked questions portion. The next one, I will begin answering. We will begin reading through questions that were placed in the chat throughout this presentation. These are questions that were not covered as one of the common questions. When I read them, we'll have one person from our team volunteer from our list of panelists to answer that question. And so let's begin. First question I see, will this be recorded for future reference? Yes. I believe we'll have our Chief of Staff, Ted Olguin, answer that question.
Yes, the recording will be available for future reference for those of you who are interested. It will be uploaded to the assessor's website at assessor.lacounty.gov/business-owners /business prop statements filing. Available on our website are previous recordings from previous years, with also additional languages including Spanish, Chinese, Armenian, and Farsi, and FAQs and other resources as well.
Thank you so much, Ted. The next question I see, are these, excuse me, I'm just going to look through. Our company keeps office supplies, papers, pens, hospitality supplies, coffee, paper products, etc. on the premises for future use. Are these items considered the type of properties taxable on the property tax return? And I believe this was answered by Alanush.
Yes, if you're not in the business of selling those items that you named, and these are the office supplies that you're using, you have to report the cost of the office supplies. And you can remark if you're reporting the annual cost, and therefore we have a calculation to estimate the office supplies on hand, but yes, you have to report those as office supplies.
Thank you so much, Alanush. And actually, maybe you can answer this one as well. This seems like a good question. We have taken equipment offline over the years and staged it in our warehouse for possible future use. However, the equipment has not been used, nor do we see it being needed in the future. If we have not recycled the electronics and equipment, are we able to remove this equipment while filing 571L?
This is a very good question. As a matter of fact, if you still have that equipment, let's say you have computers, they are old computers, but they are still possessed by you, and you are keeping them in case you will use them in the future, you have to report them. Just be aware that our trend factors are considering the value of those assets, and we are depreciating them based on our trend factors. So yes, you have to report them, or you have to dispose them and take it off of your books and records as well as your reported items.
Thank you, Alanush. I see another question. When we say that the audit is covered over a 4-year period, does that mean that the past 4 years will be audited, or does it mean there will be no audit for the next 4 years? Calvin, maybe you can answer this question.
Sure, it's depending on the area and depending on workload. Usually you'll be audited 4 years. But it's based on decision of each district and each area. So it could be audited again.
Thank you so much for that clarification. The next question I see is September 1st is a Labor Day, and for that, and if it falls on a holiday, would it still be due on that date, or would it go a day further? Maybe Winnie can answer this question.
Yeah, so I appreciate the Michaela for catching this. So if it falls on a weekend, Saturday or Sunday, or if it falls on a holiday, then it would be the next business day. So in this case, September 1st is a holiday. So then the due date would be September 2nd by 5 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. And now the next question I see, how should software such as Office and Production be treated, as well as the minimum equipment maybe? Alanush?
Software is not accessible. You can report it and put a remark, and we will not assess software. I'm not sure what is the minimum equipment. We have to understand the description of the equipment to tell you it's accessible or not, but we are not assessing software. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question I see, is equipment we own in order to rent it out to generate tax revenue taxable by your office? I'm just reading based off what was typed out. Angel, would you be able to answer this one?
Yes, if I'm understanding correctly, if you are leasing that equipment out, then yes, it is taxable, and you both, the lessor and lessee, have to report that.
Thank you. Direct and to the point. We got a question here. Are there any changes in the rates depending on the city? And maybe Calvin can answer this question.
The property tax rate is 1%. That's not going to change. What will be added to that 1% will depend on the city in your area where your business operate, such like voted entitlements or direct assessment for school, bonds, etc. So that could be, it could be added to be 1.2%, 1.5%.
Thank you for that clarification. The next question is, let's say the equipment start to depreciate over time. Will that count in the business statement filing? Maybe Angel can answer this.
Yeah, not in the sense of depreciation like in accrual accounting, like what your CPA might do for your own like income taxes. It would be our own trend factors that we use to depreciate the value. So I guess the answer is no, it wouldn't count.
Thank you so much. Another attendee asked, we file but own less than $100,000. Why do we get a bill? Are we being penalized for filing? Alanush, maybe you can answer that question.
As a matter of fact, I'm also answering another question which is a little bit similar. We explained that you are required to file if you have an aggregate cost of $100,000 or more, or you were asked by the assessor. That doesn't mean that if you owe less than $100,000, you will not get a bill. You will get a bill according to what you owe. The 100,000 threshold was for filing a business property statement. I'm also answering another question right now, and the question is that for so many years, like prior years, a taxpayer received a property statement and they filed, but they didn't receive a property statement last year, and they are asking if they don't have an aggregate cost of 100,000, should they file or not? They can choose to file, but if they don't own, possess, or control 100,000 or did not receive a request by the assessor, they don't have to file. That doesn't mean that they won't get a bill. The bill will be calculated based on business property statements that we had on file for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alanush. Another question came in, asked, when are forms being mailed out? Maybe Arpine can answer.
Yes, the forms started being printed end of January till end of February. It depends on which one your company was printed the form for. And it may take, you might have received or might have not received yet, because the ones that printed end of February takes a couple of days to be out. I had a taxpayer called yesterday. They haven't received it. You can always file online. If you don't have the PIN, it was provided earlier, the email address and a phone number to get the PIN, or else you can download the BOE version or call to the office, request another copy to be mailed out to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Another attendee asked, why are we being taxed on items we already paid taxes at purchase? Isn't this double taxation? And if every year we have to file, it just becomes a lease from the city. I don't know, that's a good question. Alanush?
We are assessing the business property statement as well as real property based on the tax laws that are in state of California. If the tax laws change, then and we don't have those tax laws, we will not assess, or we cannot assess, but we are going according to the laws and regulations for the state of California.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I believe we've exhausted our list of questions. Do we have, is there any other topics that our panelists wanted to bring up? Maybe some questions that they may get that weren't asked in the chat?
One of the questions we're asking, how do we depreciate, or how do we have, like, do we consider the equipment getting old? And the answer was yes. And I also suggested that our trend tables are published in our website. And they were asking, how can we find it? If you go on our website and go under business property section, you will find the trend factors for various types of equipment.
Thank you very much. I believe there was a question on livestock. Let me see. Looks like we have some open questions as well. Okay, I see one. For livestock, is that considered personal property and to be reported? Maybe someone.
Ian, that's a very unique question. We don't have a lot of livestock assessments in the county of LA. That's mostly maybe Central and Northern California, where that'd be more applicable. But if they call maybe our main number, we might have someone that's dealt with that. I, at the top of my head, can't give you an answer on that.
Okay.
Does
no
anyone
worries.
here, any of the panelists, have dealt with livestock before?
I certainly haven't.
No, but however, it's a good idea to file and to make sure, because some livestock are accessible.
I saw, Ian, a common question here that someone asked in one of the open questions. It says, if the asset has been fully depreciated, should we report it in the 571L? Yes, you should. IRS life is different from property tax life. Sometimes, the owner tries to recapture the cost of that asset over a shorter life. But if the asset is still in use, okay, if it's still being used in the business, it has some value, even though it's fully depreciated on the books. So yes, it should be reported. The only time that you should be removing it from your filing is if it's sold, if it's scrapped, if it's disposed. So going back to one of the earlier questions about equipment that's idle, that they're putting it on the side because they don't know if they're going to use it again, that equipment would still be taxable. Now, one way that the assessor can help in this situation, for equipment that's not being used, we can assess it differently and maybe give it a lower assessment than an active equipment that's being used regularly in the operations of the business. But yes, if the equipment is on site, it's still being used, even though it's fully depreciated, it's still assessable.
Thank you so much, Frank. I really appreciate that. Another question I see is, we received Form 571L in the years from 2007 to 2023. The form was not received last year in 2024, but we still filed online. Again, this year, the Form 571L has not been received. Since our property value has never been more than $100,000, even in those years required to file, as the form is not received this year, how do we know if we are still required to file or not?
Okay, this can depend on different situations. Now, if they do have over 100,000 in costs, they should be filing. That's without question. But if it's under 100,000, let me give you an example. A new business just opened, and we asked for a business property statement. And when they filed the form to us, we discovered that they have about $40,000 in costs. Therefore, they're not accessible. So when we process or trend that new business, it would fall below the threshold. So in that case, we would what we call a retained assessment, possibly, which means that the taxpayer would basically get assessed the same amount every year based on that first time filing, and they wouldn't be required to file a business property statement. So it's possible in this situation that since they don't have $100,000 in costs, first of all, they're not required to file. And it's possible that they've just been getting a retained assessment every year for that same amount that when we assess them a few years back. So they can always call our office if they're not sure. If we send out a business property statement, we can look at our system and verify. But just because you filed once does not mean you have to file every year if you're under that $100,000 in cost. But again, the taxpayer, you can choose to file if you want to voluntarily, even if we don't request it.
Thank you so much, Frank. And it looks like a few more questions have been added recently. One of the questions is, what is the deadline to fill an exemption? Where can I find the instructions? If I'm not sure if I will get exempted, should I file the 571L in the meantime? Maybe Calvin can answer this question.
As we said before, it's better for you to file the form, even though it's not correct one. At least you file on time. And I also including in that chat the person that the area that you can contact with. Our exemption section, the phone number, the direct phone number is 213-974-3481, or you can send the email. They respond you very quickly. It's exempt@assessor.lacounty.gov. It's EXEMPT@assessor.lacounty.gov. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Calvin. Another question I see is, should we report the original cost of equipment, and if so, will this calculation be based on the depreciation? I'm not sure if this was covered already, but Arpane, would you be able to add some insights to that?
Yes, you should just report the cost of the equipment on the year that you paid and bought the equipment, and our trend sheet factor, whenever we receive the forms, will trend it down and get the current value based on the trend sheet, and then we'll make the assessment based on the current value. But you have to report the cost. You don't depreciate yourself. You just report the cost of the original year that you bought the equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpane. Another question I see is it possible to get a copy of the results of the audit that was done by an auditor? Winnie, would you be able to provide some background for that?
Yes, so when the audit is complete, the auditor should be communicating the audit findings with the taxpayer, and they should be provide you with all the work papers and the results once it's closed. So that's something you can request directly from the auditor that you're working with.
Thank you so much, Winnie. Next question. How should equipment not meeting the $2,500 IRS de minimis threshold for capitalization be treated? Angel?
Sorry, could you ask that question one more time? I was answering
Yeah.
another question.
Oh, no worries, Frank. No worries. How should equipment not meeting the $2,500 IRS de minimis threshold for capitalization be treated?
You will still just report it at the original cost of whatever the time of acquisition it was, and then we can handle the trending later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Another question is talks about automobiles. So do we need to report any automobiles or anything that is licensed on the street? Maybe Joshua, would you be able to help answer that?
Yeah, so if they're registered under the Department of Motor Vehicles, you do not need to report the vehicle because you're already paying the tax to the DMV. So as long as they have a license plate, to my knowledge, and it's reported to the DMV, you do not have to report it in the your 571L form.
Thank you so much, Joshua. This next question seems very important to avoid duplicate payments. So it looks like an attendee leases a printer and they pay property tax to the lessor. They also report the equipment to the county assessor, and we are charged a property tax as well. How do we get a refund of the duplicate payment? Calvin, would you be able to help out with that?
So one, you need to it might be a double assessment issue. If that happened, then we should give you a refund. That's for sure. But then before that, we had to investigate. One, you had to contact our leasing section. And then give you my leasing section phone number.
I have it right here. I
It's
can
a
see. Oh, go for it.
It's a 213-974-8613. But I also instruct you to also send an email to us because it's all depending on which office. We have 4 different offices. So the bill can be canceled either from a listing section or from the office that will generate the bill. So please send your information to businesspp@assessor.lcounty.gov. That's BUSINESSPP. So that's our general public email address, and then we can send to the correct person to help you with that case.
Thank you so much. And I believe there was a follow-up on how you received that refund for a glitch double payment online. Do you have any insights into where that comes from, the refund?
Well, once we determine, for example, if it's our office, South District, then we'll confirm that the listing section did report to our listing section, and then they already assess your copier. That just using that as example, the copier. So then we're going to refund you. Then we're going to make assessment change, and then you receive a copy of assessment change, and that will be processed. The refund would range from 4 to 6 weeks, and then we're going to send information to the audit controller, so that they will be processing the refund. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that awesome insight, Calvin. We have another question here from another attendee. Not all disposals were reported on the Form 571L in previous years. Can I include the missed disposals this year? Alanush, would you be able to help answer that?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Not all disposals were reported on Form 571L in previous years. Can I include the missed disposals this year?
Yes, of course. Just there are a lot of questions, and some of them I answered that. Put your description of errors or any misreporting on remarks. Talk to us and explain fully on the remarks what kind of mistake or what kind of omission you have done, and we will work with you. If we'll have any questions, we can contact you and ask the questions, clarify the matter, and clear the errors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another question. Does the Form 571L only need to be filed if one is received in the mail? Angel, do you have any insights on that?
Yes. If you received it in the mail, that means the assessor's office does want you to submit it. If you didn't receive one via mail, we might have a wrong address or something, but you can always contact us and we can let you know. And you can also e-file if it's not your first year filing as well.
Thank you so much. And that is another good example of why we should update everyone on our mailing addresses as well. Another question I have in the chat is, how can a business amend a previously filed return? And how are amended returns handled? Arpine, would you be able to expand upon that?
Sure. So you can just amend the filing. Let's say now it's 25 for 2025 filing after you submit your property statement and notice you made a mistake. For prior years, we don't accept amended filing. Any assessment changes, if it's required, we would need the fixed asset list or depreciation schedule. You can always call to the office and talk to the appraiser who is assigned to your area. And or if it is for this year, let's say it's past the property statement season, you can always file an appeal. Again, the appeal would be only for this year from July 2nd to November 30th. But appraisers at the office, I would say we always try to help. If you can provide documents, we'll be more than happy to help you with the assessment changes. Thank you.
I also add that you have until May 31st each year to amend the property statement. So after May 31st, we do not accept amendments. Thank you, Arpine.
Thank you so much. We also received a question that probably was already answered before, but just in case, maybe we could add some more background. When will we be receiving the property statements And then when will the tax bills be mailed out as well? Arpine, would you be able to?
Sure. So the property statements, I mean, the office starts printing from end of January. It really depends. When was yours printed? You can always call to the office and we can check when was your property statement printed. You might have already received it or not yet, but we can't say for each business might be different, the due date. And as far as the bills also, it is the same. The smaller businesses that they're on retained system will start issuing the bills starting tonight. And then we will have different run dates for the bills as well. If you're on property statement, whenever we receive, we review and process it. Of course, your bill will be issued after that. And that might be from April to June. But what you want to remember, it's due August 31st. You don't want to miss that, so avoid any interest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arpine. We have another question coming in. It says, this question might have already been answered, but to confirm, the bill is titled an unsecured property taxes, correct, Angel?
Correct.
Perfect. And then scrolling down, I see another question right here. I filed the property tax statement and tie it to the fixed assets on my financials. Is this what I should be tying my values to? Correct? Chelsea, maybe you'll be able to answer that question.
Under normal circumstances, they should all tie the fixed asset list, trial balance, and all other financial records. However, there is time when people maybe some certain asset has already been fully written off, then sometimes it might not be recorded under certain financial statement. So it is important to keep in mind that when you fill out the property statement, just make sure you include everything that are in use, you're in process, that are related to your business. We want to know everything that you have for that business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So going through right here, another attendee asks, can you please give us examples and explain the differences of what should be reported as structural versus fixture? Calvin, would you be able to expand upon that?
Sure, definitely. It's all about intent. Other panelists can correct me if I'm wrong. For example, if we use AC, if you're using the AC to lower the temperatures for your server room, then that AC is accessible. But the AC is using just for the office, the whole area, for the it's not for operation, but just for the building, then that's considered as a structure. That is not accessible. I also list some sample that of structure and fixture items that you can see in my answer there. So it's all about intent.
Thank you very much. And we're approaching the end time for this webinar. I'm gonna put it up to 3 more questions. I apologize if I don't get to those questions at the moment. I encourage everyone to look through some of the Q&A. We've already answered some of those questions. And even if we don't get to talk about it verbally, you'll still be able to access this webinar on our website once it's posted. So another question I see is it true that for property tax purposes, the lessee of the tangible personal property owned by a bank or financial corporation is presumed to be the owner of the property and therefore pays the personal property tax on it? Calvin, would you be able to answer that question?
Yes, it's if you lease a copier, and that's considered as operating lease. Unless you tend to purchase it, that will be a capital lease. So if it's operating lease, you leased and then you finance through Bank of America, the Bank of America will file the statement to our leasing section, right? They will list all the lessee. Then we will send the bill either to you or to to Bank of America. But keep in mind, you need to check your contract agreement. Usually, lessee is liable for probably any taxes, including personal property tax. So you will see a bill either from Bank of America or a bill directly from us. But at the same time, if you require to file the business property statement, you need to report the asset in Part 3. So in that case, our legislation can verify to make sure, one, no double assessment, and two, if we assess it correctly. So, yes.
Thank you so much, Calvin. Two final questions. What if we have equipment somewhere else that is trying to be sold by a third party? We aren't using it because it's off-site. Would we remove it when it is transferred or not until it's sold? Alanush, would you be able to answer that?
If part of your equipment is put on sale and you do not intend to use it for your business in the future, for sure, that's part of inventory for sale and it's not accessible. You can remove the cost from you can report it as disposals.
Thank you very much. Now, the final question we have right
I'm sorry,
yes.
if any auditor thinks that my answer is a little bit like not clear, please clear it.
Can you repeat the question, Ian, please?
Yes, let me go back to it. What if we have equipment somewhere else that is trying to be sold by a third party? We aren't using it because it's off-site. Would we remove it when it is transferred or not until it's sold?
Okay, I think I think the question has to do with an equipment that they previously used in their own operations, but they're trying to sell it, therefore it's not in use. Even though it's held for sale, it's still accessible because they're still the rightful owners of that property until it's sold. Then they would be able to remove it from the reported cost on the return. Also, keep in mind that we're only assessing property that's in the county of Los Angeles. So if the taxpayer has property outside of the county, it would not be subject to tax.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you so much. We'll make room for one final question. Will you collect today's question and answers and post a summary online? Ted, would you be able to expand upon that?
The questions that were asked today, along with the responses, will be added to our FAQ, which is available on our website. So if you are interested in seeing these responses, please check back on our website in the coming weeks for an updated document.
Thank you very much, Ted. And with that, checking at the time, we now conclude our virtual business personal property statement webinar. We thank everyone in the audience and our assessor team for coming out to ask and answer questions. I encourage everyone in the audience to visit our website, assessor.lacounty.gov/businessowners, to enrich your knowledge of the business property statement form. On the left of the page, when you go to that website, you will see a list of topics to choose from. That includes instructions on how to file the business personal property statement, an in-depth look into how business property is assessed,
It looks like
and information. What's up?
Oh, it looks like we lost your audio, Ian, but you're back on. Why don't you start again?
Oh, okay. No worries. Yeah, so just to recap, go to our website, assessor.lacounty.gov/businessowners, so you can get all the information you need on how to e-file, to learn how business property is assessed, and to get information that you can pass on to new business owners, among other useful topics. You can also schedule an online and in-person appointment with an appraiser to discuss individual cases. You can visit assessor.lacounty.gov/contact and choose from one of the subtopics shown at the top to have your question directed to the proper team. A friendly reminder that our office will be hosting another virtual business personal property statement webinar this coming Thursday, again at 12 p.m. If you know someone who may benefit from attending, or if you want to hear a question that was not answer to a question that was not asked, we encourage you to share the registration link and attend at the same time that you did today. Thank you very much again for attending. We hope to see you on Thursday or in future events. Thank you.